Look at the wall to your left. If you give all your attention to that wall, you'll see something you've never seen before, something perspective changing. Okay, now look back at me. There was nothing important on that wall, but all of you were so focused on the wall that you missed everything else which was going on in the room. And there could have been something extremely important going on in some other corner that you would have had no idea about. Oftentimes, this is what happens with the media and our perception of the world. You check the news, start scrolling through article after article, many of them about inane things. What Jennifer Lopez wore when shopping yesterday, or how Mark Zuckerberg is building himself an apocalyptic bunker in Hawaii. And by only having your attention focused on this kind of information, you miss out on tons of other stories that could change the way you see the world. For me, the story that changed my world was a football story. I'm a passionate fan of the sport, and I can't tell you how many times I've stayed up late watching games on TV, yelling at the players, if only they could hear me. And yet, it turned out that there was something about football that I had no idea about. December 18th, 2022. Any football fan can tell you what happened on this day. The 2022 FIFA World Cup final took place between Argentina and reigning champions France. Argentina, led by their star player Messi, became world champions. October 9th, 2022, 2 months and 9 days earlier. Arguably, an equally important day for football fans worldwide, yet most of them probably couldn't tell you what happened on this day. The 2022 WAFF, World Amputee Football Federation World Cup Final took place, where Turkey defeated Angola to become world champions. And just 1 day before that, guess what? In the match for third of the Amputee World Cup, Uzbekistan faced Haiti. Down 2-1 at the start of the first half, the Uzbek amputee footballers managed to turn the match around completely and clinch third place with a 4-2 victory. Now, before today, how many of you had heard of the 2022 FIFA World Cup final, Argentina versus France? Raise your hands. Okay, so nearly all of you. Now, before I just told you about amputee football, how many of you had ever heard of such a thing? Significantly less. And lastly, raise your hands if you had known that Uzbekistan has one of the most successful national amputee football teams, having won the World Cup 3 times in a row, back to back to back. 1 of you, 2 of you. 3 World Cups is a prestige that few can lay claim to, and it's something every football fan dreams will happen to their nation. Imagine all the effort it would take to win a World Cup 3 times in a row. The Uzbek amputee team did something that no one else has ever achieved in the amputee or FIFA World Cup. For almost any other sport, Uzbekistan's 3 international victories would be all over the news. The entire country would be celebrating their national team's success. And yet there are so many people here in Uzbekistan, let alone the rest of the world, that have no idea about any of it. That is what I would define as an underreported story, and one that the world needs to hear. There are millions of stories that are excluded from mainstream media because they are not considered popular or newsworthy enough, and finding them is a challenge. I found out about amputee football through a school project where I had to find a story that nobody in my class had heard of. Immediately, I went to National Geographic and read this article in the sports column. Landmines took their limbs, but football brought them glory. As I became more interested in the topic of amputee football, I began researching it further. And I found out that the country I was going to live in, Uzbekistan, had an extremely successful national team. The instant I arrived in Tashkent, I took my search for this story 1 step further, talking to the people in my local community in Tashkent, only to find out that nobody I spoke to had ever heard of Uzbekistan's amputee team or any of their victories. And that's when I realized maybe nobody knew of Uzbekistan's success as an amputee team because as we grow older, we lose our childhood curiosity. I mean, as children, at some point, we've all tried looking for something that nobody would tell us about unless we specifically asked, searching for a story that we wanted to hear, the where and the how, and above all, the why, until we got what we considered a straight answer. So what happened to this desire of ours to search for stories? Okay, but so what if you've lost your childhood curiosity? Why should you go out of your way to search for an underreported story? Well, learning about underreported stories isn't just about us, the people who get to discover these unique stories. It's bigger than us, because it's about the people whose stories we discover. It's about recognizing their resilience, giving them the respect that they deserve, and it's about the inspiration that they could give others. Let's go back to amputee football for a moment and take a closer look at some of these players' stories. Most footballers in Liberia and Angola lost their limbs during civil wars which tore their countries apart. From gunshot wounds for which they couldn't receive proper medical care to landmines which remained scattered around their country years after the conflicts have ended. In Nigeria, the discrimination and unemployment that amputees face affects their ability to attend practices because they can't afford the bus fare or a second crutch to play with. And even so, these players overcame their disabilities to form football teams that their nation should be proud of. These footballers made the choice not to give up, but to fight back, facing discrimination and adversity head-on, never making excuses out of their situations. And their hard work has paid off. Angola, for instance, became world champions in 2018 and were runners-up in 2022. Sharing the story of amputee football is important because we can show that very resilience and determination that these players display to everyone and give them the respect that they deserve. These players face challenges in their lives caused by circumstances beyond their control, and still they persevere. Yet there are very few people who ever get to hear their stories. Nobody I've spoken to knows about Angola's success as an amputee team, just like how the people I spoke to in Uzbekistan didn't know of their very own national team's success. It almost makes it seem like what these players do is unimportant, when really, these players, and many others like them around the globe, should be inspiration to everyone. They should be our heroes. If we shared the story of the footballers' perseverance in the face of hardship, it could inspire others worldwide to fight back against the challenges in their own lives, whether they are similar to those in the players' lives or are completely different. Sharing this story of amputee football, or any other underreported story there is, leaves a mark on people, making them a part of the story, allowing the story to grow, ensuring that we give the heroes of the story the respect that they deserve for their resilience, and allowing them to inspire others. And now, although sharing and discovering stories, underreported stories, may seem very complicated and difficult, there are only 3 crucial and very simple steps to finding one out all on your own. Firstly, read news sources like the Pulitzer Center or National Geographic, which are known for spreading underreported stories. And when you do so, click on the title of that article, which is about something you've never heard of before, because there's a pretty high chance that you will learn something new. And lastly, most importantly, engage with the communities around you. In any community, there are everyday people with stories to tell. Your friends, your grandparents, your neighbors. And it is these normal people that, like these amputee footballers, are the heroes of our world's underreported stories. So now, close your eyes for a moment. Imagine the millions of underreported stories scattered all over the world. Imagine the everyday people that choose to fight back against adversity. The mothers and the fathers, the children and the grandparents, the neighbors. The heroes that we don't see. Think of them so that next time you open a news source, you don't only look at the wall to your left and give all your attention to flash and sensation stories that the media feeds you. Think of those heroes that we don't see, so that you also look at the wall to your right, and the one behind you, and the one right in front of you as well, so that you see the heroes that others miss. Now, open your eyes. I dare you to look for them. Thank you.